how we acknowledge the climate disaster of our time. So while checking in or saying hello, how are you? Often the response includes, well, aside from politics and the destruction of the earth, I'm doing okay. Sound familiar? The scale of the global crisis is such that mere humans, it's like, what can mere humans do in this church, in this one city, right? We talk about worsening storms and the lack of snow last winter, and often can't do much more than just shake our heads in a shared sorrow. And the moment is made worse by the current federal administration cutting off funding for parks, for protections of the environment, giving permission for exploiting natural resources and protected forests, the modest but essential forests in this country that help us breathe. It occurs to me also, as I stop to think about this, that places with, say, terrible prison conditions probably aren't doing much to save the planet either. If they can't even respect humans, what does that say about the rest of this life and the environment in which they live? One of my education colleagues called for humorous memes this morning, funny images that kind of tell the truth and also make us laugh and might be like pink and cheerful in the process. So the one they started with in their post this morning on Facebook was kind of a pinky red dumpster all aflame. And the wish from that meme is, may the dumpster fire within you burn brighter than the dumpster fire around you. May the dumpster fire within you burn brighter than the dumpster fire around you. What I want to offer as we have in this service is a pause and a chance to reflect on what's around us, on the earth upon which we depend, acknowledge the connection, and be in touch with how we can give back, an exchange of gifts, if you will. Environmentalist, teacher, and activist Dr. Joanna Macy has been guiding many of us through hopelessness with her approach of the work that reconnects. She addresses the psychological and spiritual issues of the nuclear age, the cultivation of ecological awareness, and the rich connections between Buddhist thought and contemporary science. And she says, the most radical thing any of us can do at this time is to be fully present to what is happening in the world. Let me say again, the most radical thing any of us can do at this time is to be fully present to what is happening in the world. I will offer the prospect of being fully present. It's a little daunting. 2 weeks ago, we welcomed UU musician Jim Scott for his concert on a Friday evening, The Year to Save the Earth. And the music itself was moving and spoke to the range of glory and pollution that is with us, that we are creating. His work begins and ends with love and deep respect for the planet. But he also brought into this a whole experience of imagery with the music. And the imagery itself filled me with love and guilt and despair. There was a few images of sea creatures choking on plastic. There was the vast floating island of garbage in the ocean as visible from space. There were acres and acres of garbage being picked over by the youngest and poorest of our fellow human beings, folks who are people of color, indigenous, black, they were children, they were aged. And and this music and these images were alongside the stunning beauty of the desert and lush flowers and miraculous sunrises. There was simply joy in the song about the rainforest, the levels of the rainforest. A little joy, a little education about all these levels all coming together in the song. Oh, let the rain feed the thirsty ground. Sing me the song of love you sing. What a beautiful sound. Oh, let the rain feed the thirsty ground. Sing me the song of life you sing. What a beautiful sound. It was wonderful and it was so hard to be fully present. But Dr. Joanna Macy reminds us that the gift of being present, the radical act of doing this, is not actually meant to be done by ourselves, by in isolation. She talks about in the work that reconnects is about doing so in a way that is manageable, that is at the speed of grief and the speed of trust and the speed of joy. A writer who works with the work that reconnects paradigm, Jo Del Amor. uh, She's been facilitating personal and cultural transformation and healing for the planet for nearly 20 years. Her book is Raising Children in the Midst of Global Crisis, a compassionate guidebook for parenting in turbulent times. And she's created what she calls the Count Your Blessings practice. And it's created for parents, for those of us who are guardians and caregivers of young people. But I'm going to say I think it works for everybody. And it comes from the core idea that where our attention goes, power flows. Say that again. Where our attention goes, power flows. I think we've been seeing that in the people, all of us who've been speaking up in the last few weeks, have we not? And she says, in a group setting, you can gather in a circle, maybe around a central altar, and have a supply of something beautiful like fresh flowers or silk flowers or leaves or ribbons or stickers or confetti. Over there, they have confetti and they toss wonderful, colorful things. And place onto the altar, that central spot, this abundance of beauty and wonderfulness as each person takes their turn sharing blessings in their lives. You can invite people to bring physical photos, beautiful objects that represents gratitude. And that center gathering builds up as the blessings are shared and spoken and items are bestowed upon it to give physical expression. And she makes the point, Jo Del Amor does, that this is not about comparing blessings, because some of us have more than others in certain areas of life. So it's not about comparison. Some of us have blessings we didn't earn, that privilege. All of us are struggling in ways that are seen and unseen. But there we all are by the grace of countless blessings. So no matter who we are or how challenging our lives are in the moment, there are there's always blessings to count. And I'm going to say, not this is not just for parents either. I think in this practice of count your blessings, what we get to speak to each of us, wherever we are in our lives, is speaking from what matters most, to be in touch with what matters in our hearts most deeply. And that is where those blessings and the articulation of them can come from. Those pieces that the blessings that kind of hold us together, no matter the scope of the dumpster fire. And then we get to think about, what would you give? What do you receive? And what do you give? And that's part of the what I wanted to add is a little bit of an action in this moment. a little bit of reflection. We get to practice giving attention and letting our power go in that direction, right? And in this moment in Earth Day, we get to do that for and with the earth. This practice of gratitude, this practice of acknowledgement, it can lift the heart, help us rediscover joy. And with that power flowing, can offer possibilities, dreams, and maybe not quite so be so burdened by inadequacy or guilt. You get to experience connection, be open to creativity, imagination, maybe even different perspectives if we're doing this exercise with others. So appreciate the vision offered in this kind of practice from the Reverend Stephen Schick in his book, Be the Change, Poems and Prayers and Meditations for Peacemakers and Justice Seekers. He has a short poem called Suppose. Suppose. Suppose you scrub your ethical skin until it shines, but inside there is no music. Then what? Quotes the poet. Stephen Schick responds, suppose you cried for 1,000 years for a child who died when she drank bad water. Suppose you organized a great movement to clean the water. Suppose you carried the first filled glass to the child's sister. Suppose you lifted it to her lips. Suppose you watched her dive into the glass, splash, and swim on. This is the kind of flow of power, the flow of attention into power that can come from these kinds of practices, as Joanna Macy says, simply the radical act of paying attention. Stephen Schick speaks to that need for connection, that need to do something, and the potential of the action that follows from the doing. What would it mean in our lives to give and change and create, to see what comes from sending that energy forth? Mindful of time, I want to close here. So I want to just offer a couple of reflections, a couple of specific things that I was thinking about for this. What is the reciprocity, the relationship, the flowing back and forth? Yesterday I know that there was the Earth Day Festival at Forest Park Nature Center. There were vendors and drumming and chalk art and music and walking in the woods and savoring the day. I believe there was also sales of the current batch of maple syrup from Camp Wakanda. Am I right? There was that. So we have local maple syrup sourcing, and I am a fan of local maple syrup sourcing. And part of my attention in this moment and reflection was the reminder that every place from which we come has its own spirit, has its own flavor and savor. I'm just going to talk about maple syrup for one more moment here because I grew up with it coming from Vermont and coming from Canada. And now being in Illinois, I have probably 5 kinds of maple syrup in my house. And some are from away and some are from right here. And every one of those is its own taste, its own experience, its own little bit of wonder. This is that paying attention that Joanna Macy is asking us to do. How can we dive a little deeper, even in the smallest things among us, as part of our practice, as part of giving thanks, as part of recognition? But I also want to offer one specific thing if you want to do something this week from the Central Illinois Healthy Community Alliance. There was the Edwards coal plant that was closed in recent years, but they have an ash pond that is part of the leavings of the plant. And there's conversation about what to do with the ash pond and a portion of it. And there are some concerns about the safety. So if you want something specific to do this week, this coming Wednesday at 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. over at the Père Marquette Hotel, the Luminant Committee will offer an update on the coal plant ash pond closure plan. So they'll do a presentation and there'll be time for questions. And the community really needs people to show up and listen and ask questions. Oh, this is a great way to be intentional, is to keep asking, pay attention so you can keep asking good questions, bothersome questions, annoying questions. Go be annoying, right? In a good way. Or simply say, I wonder, and not be satisfied with a corporate answer, if you will. So I want to offer a specific thing that you can do this week, right now. And as we go forward, I want to keep inviting you to pay attention to the local work we're still working on, trying to divert the CO2 pipeline from coming around this way as well. There's always good things to do. And consider, what is your practice? What do you receive from the earth for blessings and can express as gratitude? And what would you give back to fulfill your side? And keep attending to where the attention goes, the power goes. Right? It is so good to be in that practice of gratitude. I was reminded of this as well by Neil deGrasse Tyson on Friday evening here in Peoria at the Civic Center. He talked about the search for life in the universe. I think we also get to pay attention to this moment in this place. He said, while we are alive in the universe is alive in us. While we are alive in the universe is alive in us. That attention and that power makes a difference. The most radical thing, Dr. Joanna Macy says, the most radical thing we can do is to be fully present to what is happening in the world. Let us go forth. Let us go forth and be present, be grateful, receive, and give back. Amen.